Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How about yourself?
Oh, cool. Just me and my thoughts here for the past 5 minutes.
Best way to do it.
Have you, do you go live much?
I think this is the first time I've gone live in like a year and a half.
Nice, nice.
But I mean, it's all right.
Yeah, totally. um, welcome. I've got a whole little spiel. I'm just going to get out of the way here, and then we can dive into all things Pacific Rim, because I know that's what everyone's here to talk about. Hi, everybody. I'm Vincent with Camp Kaiju. I have Cameron Nelson here. He's behind All.inkd.up, a film review, film enthusiast site on Instagram. I'm very excited to have him with me, again, to talk about Pacific Rim. Before that, little bits of business I want to get out of the way. Tuesdays on Camp Kaiju, we're talking alien invasion movies, sci-fi, terror from beyond space type films. I'm watching and reviewing those, so look out for those. We are also selling t-shirts now on Camp Kaiju, which is weird and wild, and I love it. So go buy a t-shirt if you want. And then 2 weeks from now, on this same little segment, I'm going to have sci-fi novelist Andrew DeYoung with me. Look him up. He's really cool, won a bunch of awards, and he's going to talk about War of the Worlds and some of his favorite alien movies, too. So lots of cool things. If you want to follow, I guess there's a little bell on Instagram on my profile, so you can ding that and you'll get all the notifications. So anyways, that out of the way. Cameron, again, welcome. I don't want to talk anymore. Tell me your story, what All.inkd.up is about, your love for film, and why you brought Pacific Rim to the table.
Man, so my love of film goes back, I don't even know, like 5 years old. So 2008, this is when like it kind of took off. I was a big nerd before then, but in 2008, I was in the theater seeing Transformers, and the Cloverfield teaser trailer played before Transformers, and I just remember my 6-year-old brain being so like, what is this? What's going on? What is this? And I went to see Cloverfield in the theater, and it changed my life completely. Ever since then, monster movies are my thing. I love all things monsters. Like, you got a monster in your movie? You have my money.
Yeah.
They're not great, but I love a good creature. What can I say? So,
absolutely. Yeah,
I have a history with monsters. Pacific Rim was actually the first movie I went to see in IMAX.
Oh, that's cool. That's a good one to see in IMAX.
Yeah, I remember my dad and I were looking for a movie because we wanted to go to the movies, and we saw the poster and we saw Guillermo del Toro, and we were like, okay, we're sold. Like, big robots fighting big lizards and all kinds of things. Like, I'm sold. You got me in the theater.
Totally. And you just watched it again recently.
Yes.
How long had it been since then that you'd watched it?
It'd been about I want to say about a year. I let my copy out and I never got it back.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I hate that. I've been there. You want to share your love.
Yeah, and like I want to share my love, but I don't get my love back.
Man. Oh, that's the worst. Well, did you get a new copy then?
I did. I got a new copy about a week ago, and oh my god, so happy. I rewatched it with just like a glowing smile the entire way through. It's just, man. You can't go wrong.
It's so pure, the film.
Right?
And somehow it's not just dumb fun. I mean, it is, but Guillermo del Toro, like it's if Picasso or Vincent van Gogh painted a kaiju movie. It's just it's beautiful.
With that kind of film, it's like that is like a very B-movie concept, but when you bring an A-lister like Guillermo del Toro into the game, it's like you see not only is there more of like a passion on screen, you can see the passion. Like you can see how passionate he is about like, and the fights are so good. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
top
Like
tier. It's
someone back, behind the scenes choreographed those
yeah,
fights with real intention in mind. Like
yeah,
how are they gonna move? Where are they gonna land that punch and this punch?
yeah. And one thing that I love about the fight so much in Pacific Rim, it's something that it was done to in a similar way in 2013's Godzilla.
Hmm.
It's that the camera is in like these realistic locations. They're not like high up in the sky. They're very like personal,
Yeah.
and it makes these huge fights seem even more huge. And but somehow like they feel more human because
Yeah.
they don't feel like this huge CGI extravaganza. They feel like it's something that can actually happen. Like you're there with them, you know?
Yeah, I do know. And it's funny you say that about Godzilla. I rewatched that one recently and thought the same thing
Yeah,
because not to get too far away from Pacific Rim, but when I was going through all the MonsterVerse movies and like with King of the Monsters, it continued that trend of filming at the very human ground level and like
yeah,
looking up at the monsters. And some people had like my brother had a problem with that just because it was like you couldn't see the monster super well.
yeah.
But on the
I,
flip side, I was like, well, yeah, because you're a little tiny ant compared to them.
they're like 300, 400 feet tall.
Yeah,
It's like with Pacific Rim, not only is it from that like grounded perspective, but they have so much energy to those fights, and like
mm.
colors are they just pop off the screen. And one thing that I love about it, especially the city fight scene, Gypsy Danger picks up a boat,
Yeah,
active. Like, how do you get any better? Picks up a
yeah.
huge boat and just smacks it across the face. I love it.
And I love that. I mean, I'm just gonna credit it all to Guillermo del Toro.
Oh
That he
yeah,
just has this. And you listen to him talk about these movies too. He's just like a big old man child.
yeah.
Just
And it's part
so
of, not to get once again not to get too far away from the film, but it's part of Guillermo has a certain style, even with like Hellboy and all of his other films. They all feel this not the same, but they all have this respect kind of for these creatures,
yeah,
and it doesn't feel like he's throwing them at you just for throwing them at you. He feels like he's constructing these scenes like very like with the respect in mind for how these creatures operate. And I don't know, I love it. No one else does monsters like Guillermo.
I know, man. And like, I mean, we could just talk about Guillermo for 20 minutes. um, but I do want to. So I think we've covered what we clearly love about Pacific Rim. I want to ask: is there anything for you that didn't quite work or land, as hard as it may be to think about that? And I don't know.
So
I don't know either. I'm just asking you.
it's I don't have much. Obviously, I mean, you could look at my review. I gave it an A plus.
Mhm.
But if I really had to sit there and pick it apart, the first there's a lot. How do I put this? There is a bit of a lack of monster fights in the first half.
Hmm.
Like the first hour is a bit slower, and there's a bit more of character. But then there's also a trade-off with that, because then you get the third act, and the slower pace of the first half totally pays off, because then you actually care about these characters when they're in this crazy situation. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's because like the one thing I can think of, it just gets canceled out by the end of the film. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I mean, there's so many other monster movies like that. I feel like, and I'm just generalizing here, people go into a movie like this just expecting dumb action type stuff.
Yeah,
And maybe they're thrown off a little bit by that first hour, that first act of the movie, where it is slow because you are investing in the characters and the world building. And I love that kind of stuff personally.
yeah,
The beginning of Pacific Rim, where you learn the history of what's going on, and then they become pop culture characters, and there's like
yeah.
mascot characters
I
based on the kaiju.
a movie that has done that and that aspect of the like mythology and actually succeeded with it, and just the world. We're getting back to the good, I guess.
What?
So we're getting back into the good, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah, right. It's
There's-
like the bad is just what
the
might not be your cup of tea. But there's nothing. I don't think there's anything structurally flawed about this movie.
No, it's. I was sitting there. So sometimes when I review a film, and I'm bouncing between that A and A plus, sometimes like I'll think, okay, well, is it actually perfect? And because sometimes I think that A plus on an enjoyment level, and with Pacific Rim, I was sitting there, I was like, man, like my heart says A plus, but like, should I? And I'm just like, you know what? Who am I fooling here? Like, I'm gonna put this down. People are gonna be like, you gave it an A? You did have
Right.
A there? Like,
Yeah,
where'd you knock it off?
yeah.
But-
I'm with you. Are you? I wonder if you're the same way. Like when I review, when I watch a movie, I like to review it. I usually give my movies 1 out of 5 rating. But I like to do that before I read any other reviews because I don't want that to influence how I think about it.
So sometimes, it's kind of a toss-up. If it's a newer release, usually I'll look into reviews, and just get a kind of gauge of what people feel about it. Just kind of set, like, because sometimes I'll watch a movie, like, I don't know, Underwater, for example, 40-something% on Tomatoes, and
Yeah.
this is going to be terrible, and then, holy shit.
Right.
So sometimes I look at reviews, sometimes I don't. But usually, like, I'll, if I'm looking at a movie in the store, I'll look it up if I haven't seen it and be like, this looks interesting. And sometimes, like, I'll buy a movie that's lower rated and I'll take it home, and sometimes it's bad, but sometimes I find, like, this really cool hidden gem that no one's talking about.
Yeah. And then even like with the bad movies, you can usually find some sort of hidden gem within it itself. You know, like it's rare that it's just terrible across the board.
Yeah, I like to think that I'm pretty generous with my ratings, because if you have a certain I have a certain type of movie that I love, like, you already know it, like, you could see a pattern on my page.
Yeah.
And if you got a certain amount of things, you have me instantly. Like, unless you do something catastrophically wrong, like, there's very little chance that you're getting a negative review. And a lot of my reviews are very positive. I have a Letterboxd. I'm not sure if you use Letterboxd.
Yeah.
But there's a very clear spike of 4.5 and 5-star ratings, and then the one I've given like 5 movies 1-star rating.
Wow.
I
don't think I've ever given a movie that low. Because it's usually like, you know, like if I made a movie, that would be 1 star. That would just be a terrible movie. Motion picture event for everybody.
right.
I have like 5 minutes or so. I want to ask, have you seen Pacific Rim Uprising?
I have.
Okay, where does that fall on its own and then compared to Pacific Rim?
So, I only saw it once. I didn't think it was, like, atrocious, but it lacked that, like, from, like, the first few minutes, I was like, oh no, Guillermo del Toro isn't here. This feels weird. And
Yeah.
the
Totally.
lacks the fight scenes in themselves are not poorly done per se, and the characters, I would say, are more on the lines of poorly done, and the story, especially because, small spoiler, or I guess big spoiler, but Pacific Rim's a few years old now. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? But Pacific Rim ends on a very closed note. First, they close the gate, like, it's over, and then in the second one, I forget what they do with the story, but it felt very forced, and it's like, okay, why are we here? Why are we doing this?
Right.
But the fight scenes, I mean, it's still a giant lizard fighting a giant robot. Like, it's
Yeah.
still fun, but it doesn't have that level of like nuance and creativity that Guillermo had, and the fights feel like I'm watching a video game
Mm-hmm.
more than like I'm watching a film.
Yeah, I'm
And
totally with you. I felt like it was like a solid, great, like giant monster movie, more like Transformers or
yeah,
something like that. But again, it like you said, it lacked the nuance of
yeah.
a Del Toro film.
Hard part about Uprising, I didn't hate it, but like it's when I go out and buy a movie or I look online and I make a huge order, I never find myself going to be like, maybe I should rewatch this.
Right.
Like I I haven't once had the urge. Like I didn't hate it. I just it's
Mhm.
not something like, oh man, I can't wait to rewatch that. I'm always gonna put in the first one
Yeah.
over any day of the week. But something a little small fact. I'm not sure if you knew this.
Ooh, tell me.
But when Uprising was being when all the concepts were being thrown out there, before the movie flopped, it there was talks of a MonsterVerse and Pacific Rim crossover,
Mm-hmm.
and it was actually like I'm not sure how far along they got, but it was in the talks, and that's why
Yeah.
whenever I think of Uprising flopping, I'm just like, oh man, you were so close.
Well, fortunately, Godzilla versus Kong didn't flop,
Oh
so
yeah,
someone's talking about that crossover again, and like I would just die. That would just be the most amazing movie experience of my life.
just if I see the next MonsterVerse film or a MonsterVerse film like 5 years down the road and Gypsy Danger pops up, I'm gonna cry.
But it could. I think like they've already got Mecha Godzilla in,
Right?
so the world of mechas already exists. Um, I don't know if you've watched Singular Point yet, but the Godzilla Singular Point.
I have
The
not yet.
Well, it's a lot better than a certain other anime based on a certain movie we're talking about right now. But
Oh,
my point is, there are also giant robots in that. So, like, it's there. People are buying it. Let's go for it. So that anime, have you seen Pacific Rim: The Black? Are you interested in that?
I think I got like halfway through the first episode and I wasn't terribly invested, so I turned it off and I never went back to it. But I haven't really heard much buzz around it.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if it's any good. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I watched it, but because I just love Pacific Rim. But if I didn't love Pacific Rim as much as I do, no, it wasn't. It starts off strong, but then
Mhm.
like by the third or fourth episode, you can tell that the money just ran out, and they were like, we don't care anymore. The animation gets very sloppy and very cardboardy. It's bad.
It's after everything. It's bad.
Yeah. Like, I would not recommend that one, but I would recommend the movies for sure.
Oh,
Okay, a bad movie that I would still recommend. There's a spin-off, not a spin-off, a knockoff called Atlantic Rim. Yes.
I knew you were going right away. I love it.
It's Mystery Science Theater 3000. Well, okay, back up. Atlantic Rim is the same people who made Sharknado.
Oh yeah.
I watched Atlantic Rim via Mystery Science Theater 3000 on Netflix. So it's not terrible because you have that crew making jokes the whole time.
Oh yeah.
So if you just want like a complete everything ocean rimmed, go watch that movie.
Yeah, I think I've seen Atlantic Rim. I think I used to have it and then I got rid of it because I watched it and I don't know what I was expecting, but I watched it and I didn't get what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Asylum. So, but yeah, touch on. So one thing that really impresses me was with Pacific Rim and why I haven't watched The Black yet
Mm-hmm.
is because usually with that kind of a concept, it is relegated to those kind of like low budget animes or like low quality animes, and I think it's super impressive. And it blows my mind that Guillermo del Toro got $200 million to make
Yeah.
a giant, crazy ass movie with giant lizards fighting giant robots like that. In what world does that ever get approved? And
Yeah.
we live in that world, and it's one of the best kaiju movies out there. It's a blast.
I absolutely agree. I think it's a great note to end this on. For me, Pacific Rim is honestly like top 5 kaiju movies.
Oh, it's
Uh,
so.
yeah, it can't be beat. So let's get more of it.
More.
Cameron, anything else you want to add before we say goodbye for the evening?
I just want to say I enjoyed my short stay at Camp Kaiju.
Well, thank you. It was great having you.
It's great being here.
All right, everybody, go check out All.inkd.up on Instagram and read Cam's reviews. Have a good night, man.
You too.
See ya. Ah, that was great. Give it up for him in the chat. And thank you for joining us. You know, do all the engagement you can. If you missed us, my little spiel in the beginning, I've got Tuesday video reviews where I'm watching and reviewing alien invasion movies. So that's pretty fun. We've got t-shirts, which is really fun and random, but go get those. And we'll be doing this sort of interview thing again in 2 weeks' time with sci-fi novelist Andrew D. Young, talking about War of the Worlds and other awesome alien movies. So anyways, hit the little bell, engage, and stay tuned. Lots to come at Camp Kaiju. Thanks, everybody.